Hey guys, Scott Patton here. I got my April top 5 picks for you. And, April is one of those months where, you start out early April and then the water temperature really changes towards the end of April. You're coming from pre-spawn to spawn in April in most parts of the country. But anyways, some of these baits that I'm going to show you that, you got to go with, that you got to have in April. I may not fish like the first couple of weeks of April, and some of them may only fish like the last week or last 10 days of April, because you're going to have fish that are garden fry, and versus where you got spawning fish, and then you got fish that are just moving up wanting to spawn. So I'm going to kind of go through what I got right here, you guys. And I'm going to start out, of course, with the things that I'll be catching them on early April and stuff, and then we'll progress through the end of the month. But anyways, in April is another one of those months where you could catch fish on so many different lures. I mean, almost everything in the tackle box you could catch fish on in April. But, when I got doing my top 5 picks, I'm trying to pick out my 5 that I'm feeling the most confident with and that I want to have tied on during the month as far as choosing 5 baits. But anyways, let's go. Early April, a ChatterBait or jackhammer bait is really good. It covers a lot of water. Like this is a 1/2 ounce, but a lot of times I throw a 3/8 ounce because I can fish a lot slower in shallower water and stuff on these channel banks and stuff. That's fish are moving in as the water's low. They're waiting, they're staging in those kind of places in order to move back into the backs of them later in the month to spawn. And I can fish this bait on 17, 20-pound test line, catch a lot of big fish with it. And I'll throw it on a 7-foot pow rod, medium heavy action. I want some backbone, but I still want some tip on there, because I want, when that fish hits, I want him to be able to eat the bait and not take it away from him as soon as I feel him to eat it. So I like a little bit softer tip, good backbone on my jackhammer ChatterBait type rods. As far as trailers, this is a Yamamoto. I think they're called Zaccos. But anyhow, sometimes it's changing the trailer, especially if you got dirtier water, using like a boot tail Swimbait on there will work real good. Something that's going to have more action can make all the difference in catching fish and not catching fish. So sometimes on this bait here, you've got to really kind of play with the trailers to see what kind of action and how much action the fish want or don't want in order to catch them on it. So that's one thing I recommend when you're throwing your jackhammers and chatterbaits, to don't just stick with one trailer, okay? Try different trailers and see, because some of them have more action than others. So pay attention to that, because a lot of times that can mean the key to success or not catching hardly anything at all. But anyways, another bait that I'm using actually right now a lot is using like a Cinco a bait. Now I've usually rigged this thing a Cinco earlier in the year, early April rather. The way I'm gonna rig this is gonna be Texas rigged, and what I'm doing, you can either cast this or you can flip it. This is a 7.3, 7.4 pound heavy action rod. I've got that on like a 3/16 pro tungsten. Of course, I got a peg with a bobber stopper. I got a flipping hook in this one here, because I've been flipping it still some, pitching around lay down trees and stuff like that, because the water is just coming up, getting in these trees, cover. Like I say, all your lakes are going to be drawn down. If they're man-made lakes, they're going to be drawn down to a certain point, and they're going to start rising. And as that water rises, those fish are going to move in. When you got new water moving in on new cover, then you're going to have fish moving into that cover. For cover itself, and also there's going to be a bluegill and other stuff like that moving in there. But anyways, so I'm going to flip a Cinco a lot. This time of year I may flip a beaver bait, but early when the water's cold, it seemed like they like a real subtle bait. So that Cinco does real good for me. And I'm flipping this on 20-pound test Seaguar fluorocarbon line. And of course, I always bobber stop anytime I'm flipping around cover, because I don't want my bait to fall in and my sinker to slide down. If I don't have that bobber stopper on there, then my sinker can slide down and my bait will be off from the bottom and get hung in a branch and stuff like that, especially if you're flipping cedar trees and stuff. So just make sure that you always use a bobber stopper to peg that down, and that way your weight will stay with your bait, you guys. And these bites can be real subtle. A lot of times you barely just feel a bite. A lot of times you'll just see your line moving. They'll grab that bait and swim out of the cover with it. So pay close attention to the cover and your line when you're fishing this bait this time of year. Then I'm going to go with my number 3 bait is going to be, well, before I go to number 3, I want to go to another way that I use the Cinco, and this is going to be more towards the end of April, like the last week or even the last 2 weeks, depending on what Mother Nature gives us as far as temperatures and stuff. Like right now here on Chickamauga, we've already got some fish spawning, and I saw a 7-pounder on the bed just the other day. So, we got males moving up, wanting to spawn, and we got some that are already locked on the beds already, you guys. And that's where this Cinco comes into play. And I'll wacky rig it, Nico rig it more or less. I've got, I think that's a number 2 Nico hook. I got a band around there, I got rigged in the middle. And I usually use this like a 1-inch finished nail because they're cheaper than buying the tungsten. And I just put that just enough weight to make the thing fall down, and then I'll pull it back up. I'm fishing it real slow and real subtle, and I'm more or less I'm not fishing this bait suspended like I may in the summertime. I'm letting this bait go all the way to the bottom, fall to the bottom, then I'll twitch it and let it flutter back down to the bottom like that, in order to throw it on a bed. And get some of those fish that are spawning, and also some of those males that are just cruising around. They're usually pretty aggressive, and this is a great way to catch them because they're going to be up there in a foot of water, you guys. You can't fish too shallow when those fish are moving up there to spawn. And that Nico rig is one of those baits that's really will catch you a lot of fish, especially when they get up around docks and stuff like that. It's a great bait to use as well. So the next bait I'm gonna go with is gonna have to be my Swimbait. Mid-April all the way through April, and all the way through May too. But throwing this is the MagGraph, of course, a lot of people know about it. I've got it spooled up on 20-pound test line. This is albino to 6-inch. I love this bait down here this time of year and all the way through May because you catch a lot of big fish. And it's got a magnet insert into it, guys. To see how that hook stays into that bait right there. And what it is, it's got a magnet insert into it that holds it up there. That way it helps it stay a little more weedless, especially when you're fishing it or over grass, stuff like that. See how that is? That's one of the really cool things. It's a simple bait to throw, you guys. He's got, I throw on a really heavy rod. So this is a 7-6 pow. Flipping sticks while I'm throwing it on, and of course I got on 20-pound Seaguar line because you catch some giants with it. But this thing just catches fish, and you're just going to throw it out there, you guys, and just slow roll it. A lot of times this bait is within sight, where I can see it as I'm swimming through there. You'll see them fish come up and get it. Throw it over the top of lay downs and stuff, the ends of the lay downs. If you've got grass in the lake, you can fish it over somewhere's grass. It's a real good bait to slow roll it, but it is a good big fish bait for this time of year. And also, it don't just catch the big ones. It'll catch them 2- and 3-pounders too, you guys. So if you don't have a lot of big fish in your lake, don't think that you can't still fish this 6-inch MagGraph and not catch fish, because you can. I'm telling you, this thing just draws them out, and it's something a lot of guys ain't fishing. And really, like I say, it gets fished a lot here on Chickamauga. But if you fish some of the other lakes, guys ain't fishing it. I'm telling you, get you a couple of these. To me, the albino is probably the best color all the way around. They make several more colors that are really good. But fantastic bait, you guys. Make sure you use that and to fish it real slow. Just watch it, cast it out there, look at it, and watch it swim and see how it does. You'll catch fish on this for sure. But it's a great big fish bait in almost any lakes for the month of April. All right, so that would have been number 3, I believe it is. And another bait too that I go with a lot is going to be a swim jig. I like a swim jig because it's real subtle. A lot of people be throwing spinnerbaits and jackhammers and stuff like that, but a swim jig is something that is fantastic because a lot of times in April you could be looking at a shad spawn on a lot of your lakes. Even if it's not a shad spawn, it's just a real good bait that you can throw around cover, lay down trees, through grass. You can throw it up there real shallow because it's real weedless. This is the white one. Most time I throw a white that has got a Zoom Z-Crawl on it. It's got a lot of good action on it. Sometimes I may put just like a small swim bait on the back of it, have more of a paddle tail action, so you can do that too. It's hard to beat just white when it comes to swim baits, but you know, you don't want to throw this on 17 or 20 pound test line. It catches a lot of big fish. You can throw around a lot of cover, around docks and stuff like that. It's really a good bait, you guys. Towards the end of month of April, catches a lot of fish. And so that's probably one that you probably want to have tied on. And again, it's a bait that a lot of guys just don't fish all the time. So, you know, there's so much fishing pressure on our lakes nowadays. You got to kind of throw some baits where everybody might be throwing a chatterbait and a spinnerbait. You know, what will relate to that same type of, you know, style of fishing, but be a little bit different. And a lot of times, you know, throwing a swim jig, I just don't see that many people fishing a swim jig will catch you a lot of fish behind other guys that are maybe throwing a spinnerbait or a chatterbait, because we all know if you're out there fishing, especially on the weekends, you know, there's so much boat traffic out there, you're hardly ever not going to be fishing behind somebody at some time throughout the day. So thinking about, you know, throwing that swim jig can catch you a lot of fish, like I said, where a lot of guys ain't throwing it. So I always got that swim jig tied on this time of year. And then you go more into the end of April. On most of our lakes, we're going to have spawning fish. We're going to have fish garden fry because some of them's already hatched. Some of the earlier fish that spawn the early part of April. I will always have a top water tied on. I will go with a frog most of the time. If I had to just pick one, which is what I'm doing here, is a frog. I'll use a popping frog and just a walking frog too. These are a couple I use. You know, you can never go wrong with a black frog, and this killer gill, I believe it is. Excellent color. But, you know, I would mainly use, you know, I'll start out and see, let the fish tell me if they want something with more action to it. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they want something with more subtle. But I will let the fish tell me what kind of bait they want. And, you know, I'll try to walk most of these baits when I'm fishing it. I'll throw these normally on like a 7-4 extra heavy power rod on braided line because you catch a lot of big fish on it. There's a great bait to throw when they're garden fry, and even it's a great bait when they're on the bed too, you guys. It's something a lot of guys don't throw, is when they're actually on a spawn, especially if you're going to be fishing around lay down trees, overhanging brush, underneath the docks, you know, through grass and, you know, reeds, anything like that. So it's just a very versatile bait to throw over bedding fish, and it catches a lot of the big females too. One thing I've noticed over the years too is I've seen times to where they'll be more aggressive, you know, when the fish are on the beds. They'll be super aggressive in the morning at low light conditions. You can get a lot more bites a lot faster by throwing a frog over their beds, where that bite might die out come, you know, 9:30 because the sun's up. I feel like them fish can see around them, so they don't have to be so aggressive. But throwing a frog early in the morning towards the end of April can be really good, and not just early in the morning. You know, I'm just saying that I've seen those cases to where it would be good early and then it would die out, and then I have to go back to flipping my Cinco or something like that. But you know, make sure you got that frog tied on, throw it on braid, good heavy rod, and learn to walk that frog because it catches so many fish. Because you can walk this thing really tight and it's set right over, you know, walk it just a little bit and it sets right over top of that bed, and that's when they can't stand it. Or if you're seeing fry and you're throwing the bait up there and you're you're starting to walk it and you start spooking fry, you see fry jumping, that's when you want to pause it, because there's probably a male or female down there Cardinals fry, and that's where you catch a lot of big fish on a frog. I love a frog towards the end of April and beginning, well, we ain't going to talk about May just yet, but towards the end of April, I really love throwing that frog for some big bites. But guys, that's kind of pretty much a walk through of my top 5 baits. I think I've gone through 5 here. We've got the jackhammer, the Cinco, the frog, the Swimbait, and the Swimbait. That gives us 5. I wish I could tell you more, but we're going to keep this to the top 5. Guys, I appreciate you watching. I'm a little bit late on this video this month. Been so covered up guiding, and we just move back and forth from Florida to here and getting everything all set back up and get things going. But I appreciate you watching. Leave a comment. Make sure you subscribe for me, you guys. I really appreciate it a lot. And here soon I'm going to be doing a video as far as what's happening on Chickamauga again. We're going to start doing those again this year for you guys that fish Chickamauga all the time. But I appreciate it, guys. See me on the water, give me a shout. We'll see you out there, and good luck on your fishing, guys. Thanks a lot for watching.